Let's switch gears a little bit. We've been looking at graphing and parts of the polynomial. Now we need to talk about how to divide polynomials, because sometimes to find the zeros, we're going to have to do some real work. So just a reminder, because you probably haven't done long division for a while. When I do long division the normal way, I'm just going to go through one with you to remind you. Remember, I take the second number and put it on the outside, because I'm going to see how many times does 5 go into that other number. Then I'm going to say 5 doesn't go into 2, or I would do that, but it goes into 25 5 times. I would then take 5 times 5 to get 25, and I would subtract that. 25 minus 25 is 0, and I would bring down the next number. So hopefully this is all coming back to you. Then I say, how many times does 5 go into 7? 5 goes into 7 one time. I'm writing the 1 over the 7. 1 times 5 is 5, and I'm going to subtract that. 7 minus 5 is 2. Bring down the next number. 5 goes into 28 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25, and I'm subtracting to get 3. Then I bring down the 4. 5 goes into 34 6 times evenly. 5 times 6 is 30. I'm subtracting, I get 4 left over. Now, when we did this before, way back when you first learned division, you probably then put a decimal and some zeros, but we're going to go ahead and just say a remainder of 4, because we're going to deal with remainders in polynomial long division. So that's how we would do long division. So just a reminder, so that when we do this with polynomials, you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of similar, but it really sucks. So let's take a look at our first one together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first part of this, what I'm dividing, and just recopy it. And my second goes on the outside. My divisor goes on the outside. And when I do this, essentially what I'm doing is I'm comparing the first term only to the first term of what I'm dividing. And I'm saying 2x times what would be 2x cubed, or how some people like to think of it is take the one on the inside, 2x cubed, divide it by the 2x, and see what you get. And I get x squared. So what I want to do is I want to take x squared times both of these terms. So x squared times 2x is 2x cubed. And x squared times minus 5 is minus 5x squared. And just like I did with normal long division, I am going to subtract all of that. And when I subtract that, what happens is I'm actually adding the opposites. So what I end up with is 2x squared plus negative 2x squared, and a negative 11x plus 5x, or negative 6x squared. Just like with long division, I then brought down the next term, 13x. And now I essentially repeat the process, looking at 2x and negative 6x squared. So again, what do I take times 2x to get negative 6x squared? Or what do I get when I divide them? I get negative 3x. So that's my next term on the top, which is my solution. Negative 3x, I'm going to take times both. So negative 3x times 2x, negative 6x squared. Notice those always match up. Negative 3x and negative 5 is positive 15x, but I'm subtracting everything, which means I'm adding the opposites. And then I get that the first two cancel, which they always should. Plus 13 and plus negative 15 is negative 2x. Bring down the last term, plus 15. Repeat the process for negative 2x and 2x. And I find I just get negative 1, so that's my last term on the top, negative 1. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5, but I'm subtracting all of it, which means I get plus, plus, and then minus. 2x, negative 2x and positive 2x cancel. 15 and negative 5 is 10. So my final answer is what I have on the top, x squared minus 3x minus 1, with a remainder of 10, but here's how I write a remainder. I'm going to write plus because it's positive, and then 10 over my divisor, 2x minus 5. So this is my final answer. Now, you might just now, or maybe before we started, be thinking, why in God's green earth would I ever want to divide polynomials? Well, what we're trying to get to is to be able to solve something like this. And if you'll notice, this one would not factor by grouping. If I had 2x cubed minus 11x squared plus 13x plus 15 equal to 0, I couldn't factor this by grouping because I wouldn't get the same thing twice. So we are trying to lead up to the point at which we're going to be able to factor that without factoring by grouping. So one of the things we'll have to know how to do is to divide. So here's one for you to try on your own. And what I want to point out to you before you get started is there is no x cubed value, so I'm going to put a 0x cubed, and there is no x squared value, so I'm going to put a 0x squared. And it's a good idea to do that. In this case, you could have divided and you wouldn't have even noticed, but that's not always the case, so get used to doing things the right way, the way that things always work. And so in this case, when I did long division, I would have to leave those placeholders. So press pause, try this question, then press play to see how you did. So again, to do my long division, inside I'm going to take x to the 5th minus 3x to the 4th plus 0x to the 3rd plus 0x squared plus 12x minus 33. And then x minus 3 on the outside. Now I'm going to follow the same steps I did before, first comparing x to the 5th, knowing that I'd have to multiply by x to the 4th. Again, you can also do x to the 5th divided by x. I'm not going to do that anymore. That's not the way I do it, but please feel free if you can't do that multiplication yet. So x to the 4th times x is x to the 5th. X to the 4th times minus 3 is minus 3x to the 4th. So this one happens to work out differently than most of the time because that second factor is going to cancel as well. But I'm going to subtract, which means I'm adding the opposite of both of these. And notice this goes away and this goes away. So I have 0 x to the 4th. And I've got 0x to the 3rd. And I've got 0x squared. And I could keep writing plus 0x, etc. But I'm not going to waste my time. So I'm going to bring down my plus 12x. And I'm actually going to bring down that last term too. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want two terms. So I'm not just going to stop at 12x. I'm going to take my two terms. So I brought them both down. And now I'm comparing 12x to x. So x and 12x, I'd have to take it times 12. So I'm going to put plus 12 all the way down here. So 12 times x is 12x. 12 times minus 3 is minus 36. I'm subtracting everything, so I'm adding the opposite. And that gives me 3 as a remainder. So my answer is x to the 4th plus 12 with a remainder of 3 divided by x minus 3. That is my final answer for division.